This is a Best in Climate episode of Earth Feels, where each week your hosts Rose and Christine read to you from some of the best climate-related blogs and articles on the web.
Hi, Rose here. I'm thinking this week, as I think we all are, about what's going on with the coronavirus and trying to understand from a bigger picture what's really happening and trying to look at it from the perspective of what if this is happening for us instead of to us. So while I'm sitting out on my lanai in Golden Hill, San Diego, the stars are out and the sky has broken clouds and the world as we know it is coming to a standstill. I read today that the citizens of Wuhan could actually hear the birds singing for the first time in many years. The level of pollution has dropped significantly over China, so much so that we can actually see it in satellite images from NASA. The same thing is happening in Italy. We can see the slowdown happening and how it is allowing the atmosphere to regenerate. So isn't that amazing? Our leaders have been telling us that to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 is next to impossible, that it will ruin the economy, throw the world into chaos. And that has been their reasoning for continuing the insanity of profits and pollution that is now accepted as the norm. Along with all the havoc that we are wreaking on the planet to the planet itself, we are also wreaking on one another in the name of, quote unquote, the other, in a world we inhabit of fear, in the language of dominion over. And yet, here we are, all in it together, old and young, rich and poor, famous and unknown, male, female, every damn color of the rainbow, and every sexual preference. We are one. And suddenly what truly matters becomes crystal clear. How will we react in this moment? Will we react with love or fear? And every action or inaction adds or detracts to the collective vibration. We get to choose. Will we add to the love and raise the level of global consciousness, or will we allow the program of fear to run us? This is our moment. We choose where we go from here. To this end, I came across an article this week that I want to read to you by Jonathan Hadas Edwards and Julia Hartsell, called What If the Virus is the Medicine? Here goes. The emerging pandemic is already a watershed for the 21st century. Things won't ever be the same. Yet for all the havoc that the virus is wreaking, directly and indirectly, it may also be part of the bitter medicine the global body needs. How could adding another crisis to an already crisis-ridden planet possibly be medicinal? Before we explore that question, we want to be clear. Our intent is not to downplay the severity or minimize the importance of lives lost to this disease. Behind the mortality figures lie very real pain and grief, and these numbers, often discussed so casually, are personal, representing the potential loss of our parents, elders, teachers, dance companions, grandmothers, or immune-compromised friends. Already our hearts are breaking for the physical distance with our aging parents until we know if we're infected. There's not only risk of losing beloveds in this time, but having to do so from afar. Our hearts are breaking for those who may die or suffer alone without the touch of their loved ones. We honor death as a sacred passage, but we do not minimize death, suffering, or sickness in the slightest. We pray that each one who transitions from this virus, as from the many other deadly diseases, accidents, overdoses, murders, suicides, mass shootings, and on, be met with on the other side by unexpected blessing, connection, and peace. Neither are the economic implications to be taken lightly. Many in this country have already seen massive impact, and the recession has only begun. As always, those closest to the edge will be hardest hit. For some, a month sequestered in beauty could be a vacation. Others may have a few months before financial panic sets in. And for others living paycheck to paycheck or gig to gig, there's a great immediacy of struggle. The economic side effects of this coronavirus could be catastrophic. And yet, for many in our world, the pre-coronavirus status quo was already catastrophic. Many are facing an imminent end to their world. Indeed, for many species and many peoples, the world has already ended. We are in the midst of a crisis of unprecedented magnitude. The choice for humanity is change or die. No one said change would be easy. Neither is dying. And incremental change is not enough. It will take radical change to shift our current calamitous trajectory away from massive environmental devastation, famine, energy crises, war and refugee crises, increasingly authoritarian regimes, and escalating inequalities. The world we know is dying. What is unsustainable cannot persist by definition, and we are starting to see this play out. What hope is there then? There is the hope that breakdown will become, or coexist with, breakthrough. There is the hope that what is dying is the caterpillar of immature humanity, in order that the metamorphosis yields a stunning emergence. That whatever survives this collective initiation process will be truer, more heart-connected, resilient, and generative. We are entering the chrysalis. There is no instruction manual for what happens next. But we can learn some things from observing nature. For one thing, the chrysalis stage is preceded by a feeding frenzy in which the caterpillar massively overconsumes. Sound familiar? We've been there for decades. Then its tissues melt into a virtually undifferentiated goo. What remains separate are so-called imaginal cells, which link together and become the template from which the goo reorganizes itself into a butterfly. Does the caterpillar overconsume strategically or out of blind instinct? Does it know what's coming and trust in the process, or does it feel like it's dying? We don't know. It's natural to resist radical, painful change, but ultimately there's little choice but to surrender to it. We can practice welcoming the circumstances that force us away from dysfunctional old patterns, be they economic or personal, and we have that opportunity now. Let's return to a crucial word: initiation. On an individual level, initiations are those processes or rituals by which one reaches a new state of being and correspondingly social status, from girl to woman, from layperson to clergy, and so on. Initiations can be deliberate or spontaneous, as in the case of the archetypal shamanic initiation, which comes by way of a healing crisis. To paraphrase Michael Meade, initiations are events that pull us deeper into life than we would otherwise go. They vary widely from culture to culture and individual to individual, but two characteristics they share are intensity and transformation. They bring us face to face with life and with death. They always involve an element of dying or shedding so that the new can be born. Most all of us have undergone initiations of one sort or another, from the death of a parent to the birth of a child. Many have experienced initiation in the form of a crisis or trial by fire. Those of us who have gone through more deliberate, ritualized forms of initiation can state unequivocally, the process is not fun, comfortable, or predictable. You may well feel like you're going nuts. You may not know who you are anymore. You don't get to choose which parts of you die, or even know ahead of time. One of the overriding feelings is that of uncertainty. You don't know where you're going, only that there's no going back. And there's no way of knowing how long the transformation will take. It can help to remember that the initiatory chrysalis phase is a sacred time, set apart from normal life, that it has its own demands and its own logic, that it cannot be rushed, only surrendered to, that it may be painful, but also, ultimately, healing. Imagine what happens when an entire society finds itself in the midst of a critical initiation. Except you don't have to imagine. It's already happening, or starting to. It looks like chaos, a meltdown, We're in a moment of collective, global-level crisis, an uncertainty that has little precedent in living memory. The economic machine, the source of our financial needs, and also a system that profits from disease, divorce, crime, and tragedy, is faced with a dramatic slowdown. We are all facing the cessation of non-essential activities. There is opportunity here if we can claim it. This is a sacred time. However, unlike a traditional rite of passage ceremony, there's no priest or elder with wisdom born of experience holding the ritual container, tracking everything seen and unseen. Instead, all at once there are millions of personal quests inside one enormous initiatory chrysalis. And yet look closely. Amid the goo, you may start to notice imaginal cells appearing. Pockets of people who are aligned with something they may not fully understand, in receipt of a vision or pieces of one, beaming out their signal to say, let's try something different. This is an opportunity to loosen our grip on old and familiar ways. Those ways worked for as long as they did, and they got us here, for better or for worse. They seem unlikely to carry us much further. What if we're instead being asked to feel our way forward from the heart, without benefit of certainty, which, when concentrated, quickly becomes toxic? No one has all the answers in this or any other time. Right now, the questions may be more valuable. What if we honor this time with sacred respect? What if we take the time to listen for the boundaries and limits of our Earth Mother? What is truly important? How can we receive the bitter medicine of the moment deep into our cells and let us align us with latent possibility? How can we, with the support of the unseen, serve as midwives to all that is dying here and all that is being born? With these questions resounding, let us slow down, and listen for echo back from the unseen, for whisperings from the depths of our souls and from the heart of the mystery that, no less so in times of crisis, embraces us all. Special thanks to Jonathan and Julia for this heartfelt message. It hits me exactly where I live, and I hope it does the same for you. Thanks for listening.
That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for